Ever had one of those days where everything is going according to plan and then some unexpected misunderstanding takes place and all of a sudden everything is possibly going to hell? Well, for undercover cop Darcy, that seems to be a reoccurring theme, as you're about to find out. Hey guys, welcome to Bent Planet, where I tell you true stories of humans in abnormal predicaments. Tales that will twist your mind. And this story is no exception. Heads up though, if you haven't watched part 1 of this story called Dodging Bullets Part 1, How to Cockblock a Strip Search, you'll get a lot more out of this story if you watch that one first, so hit the link in the description to get there. But for those of you who already have, get comfortable.
Are you ready to hear a story?
So, to give you guys a wrap on how the bust did eventually go down. About a week after the pat-down incident where Darcy dodged a bullet, it was a belting hot Aussie day in a Melbourne city backstreet, and Darcy was again wearing a wire, this time with a working signal, because the deal was finally taking place. He was about to purchase a large amount of heroin from Shane's suppliers. Darcy was with another undercover, a woman posing as his girlfriend, and they were parked in a car about 50 metres away from a vehicle with Shane and 2 other men who were supplying the drugs. The suppliers said they would sell half a kilogram first, exchanging the money for the drugs, and once that was complete, they would make the exchange for the other half a kg. The reason for this is most likely out of fear of being set up and robbed. Legally, the penalties for supplying half a kilogram and a full kilogram of heroin are the same. So either way, a full kilogram bust or a half kilogram bust wouldn't have affected their judgment under the law, so more than likely their caution was just a step to make sure the buyer, Darcy, would really produce the money and didn't have other plans up his sleeve like stealing the drugs and not paying. Losing half is better than all. So on this blistering hot day, Darcy approached the supplier's car with half the cash, roughly 100 grand. He got into their vehicle, and once the heroin was handed over in exchange for the cash, Darcy slipped a code word into their conversation to be picked up on his wire by the police surveillance. He also made a hand gesture that could be seen by the backup police SWAT team, who were focused in on the whole deal from their hidden positions. He then told the suppliers he would go and get the other half of the money, and as he walked away from the car, the SWAT team pounced to take everyone down and make arrests. The standard procedure for a bust like this is that the arrest team also treat the undercover just like the rest of the criminals, arresting him along with everyone else so as not to blow his cover. So the plan was to also arrest Darcy to not give away his police involvement in the operation. As Darcy knew this, the moment the SWAT team began rushing in, rather than wait for someone to push him to the ground, he just lay down on the ground with his hands up to each side. And as you can imagine, after working this case for so long, he was pretty keen to watch the other guys get arrested, just out of curiosity. So he positioned himself in a way that gave him a view of the car. But another unexpected incident happened at this point. The operative that jumped on Darcy to act out his arrest pinned him down onto the ground, digging his knee into his back with such force that Darcy was thinking, damn, this guy's really playing the part. And as Darcy tried to keep an eye on the arrests of Shane and the suppliers, the agent slid his knee up, driving it into the back of Darcy's head and forcing his cheek to not only be grazed against the bitumen, but the boiling hot black asphalt burned his flesh as he was unable to move away from it. He was held there for a considerable amount of time, long enough that Darcy felt the searing pain of his cheek seriously burning the flesh. And then, when the operative finally eased off and patted Darcy down, he felt the battery pack of the police wire at the back of his hip, and he asked, "What's this then?" Darcy was obviously dumbfounded that he even needed to ask, but he replied under his breath, "It's the wire." "It's the what?" the operative asked again. "It's the fucking device," said Darcy, still trying to keep out of earshot from the other crew being arrested. At this, the operative freaks out, raises his voice and blurts out, "What kind of device? He's got a device!" Clearly thinking device meant some kind of explosive and he was wanting immediate backup. Darcy realizes at this point that the operative doesn't even recognize him as the undercover. For fuck's sake, am I about to get shot by my own team, he's thinking, as more SWAT team run over. But as soon as they arrive, they grab the operative on Darcy and in frustration tell him, "He's the UC, you idiot." What? The undercover, he's the undercover. Most of the guys on the operation had worked with Darcy before, plus he'd been into the office that morning, so in theory, everyone should have recognized him. Finally, the guy realizes his mistake and just says, "Oops, sorry." So once again, Darcy feels like he's dodged another bullet. Fortunately, the suppliers and Shane were far enough out of earshot and caught up in their own confusion and arrests, so they didn't catch on to Darcy being involved with the police. And due to a huge amount of transcripts, recordings, and Darcy's undercover work, plus the actual drugs and the deal being witnessed by a police squad, it was an overwhelming amount of evidence to convict both Shane and the suppliers for heroin supply charges. So they all pled guilty and there was no need for a trial or for Darcy to come in contact with them again at any point. As far as sentences went, Shane landed approximately 5 years jail time for the heroin deal, plus another 3 to 4 years for the gun incident where he shot someone on stage, while the other suppliers also received jail sentences of 5 to 7 years. The whole mess up with Darcy not being recognised by a SWAT member caused a massive drama within the agency. The repercussions could have been huge and far more serious. Darcy could have been shot, seriously injured or killed, especially if he'd been carrying a gun and produced it and there'd been more confusion that took place. So this caused a shift in tactical procedures and new regulations were set in place where undercover police were required to meet the entire backup team face to face prior to the bust. And the UC needed to be wearing the same clothes that he or she intended to wear when the bust took place. Years later, Darcy bumped into that SWAT cooperative that had mistaken him for one of the criminal targets. And when he recognised Darcy, recognised him this time, he lowered his head and said, "Oh man, every time we go to do a bust, someone will bring it up and everyone will give me shit for it." He probably deserves it though. And to this day, Darcy still has a scar on his face where the hot asphalt burnt the skin. But hey, it beats being scarred by a lethal bullet, and he managed to dodge those. Alright guys, that's a wrap on Dodging Bullets Part 2, The Bust. If you want to thank Darcy for sharing his story, show him you enjoyed it by hitting that like button. Oh, and also, if you want to watch the full interview with Darcy, I've just put links in the description below to a full YouTube video and a full podcast with the audio, so check that out. If you love this kind of content, hit the subscribe and I'll keep telling you stories. Beyond that, thanks for being obsessed with weird stories as much as I am, and I'm looking forward to telling you more. That's it from Bent Planet. See you next time.